There are things in life that don't just break your heart. They break something inside you. That's what happened to me that morning when I opened a message from my eldest daughter, Elena. It was a quiet Sunday morning, and I was sitting alone with a cup of black coffee growing cold in my hands, watching the birds outside the window. My phone vibrated. "Hi, Dad. Amy and I have been talking. We believe it will be easier if we take Mark's last name. We wanted to know, how would you feel about him adopting us?" At first, I couldn't believe it was true. Maybe it was meant for someone else. Maybe she had made a mistake. But then I looked closer, and the words sank in. I read them over and over until my chest tightened and the cup slipped slightly from my hands, spilling coffee onto the edge of the table. I raised these girls myself. I changed each of their diapers. I took care of each of them when they had a fever. I started braiding their hair and picking out dresses for their school proms. I was there for them when their mother left and never came back. And now they want another man's name, another man's status. But if I want to tell you how we got here, I have to start at the beginning. Rachel and I met in college. I was studying engineering and working nights at a print shop on campus to pay for school. She was studying communications and seemed to be living life without a care in the world. She was a ray of sunshine, confident and spontaneous. I was stable, methodical, and quiet, a bookworm. They say opposites attract, and that was certainly true in our case, intensely and quickly. I proposed to her under a large willow tree by the lake where we first met on our first date. She cried, said yes, and everything was perfect. We got married that summer after graduating from university. She started working at a small marketing company. I got a job as a junior engineer. 2 years later, our first daughter, Elena, was born. 3 years later, Amy was born. Rachel wasn't the maternal type. She tried hard, I'll give her that. But she quickly became disillusioned with everyday motherhood. She missed adult conversation, late nights out, weekend trips. When Amy turned 1, she said she couldn't stand the domestic trap anymore and went back to work. That's when I changed direction. I started freelancing from home, rethought my career plan, and became the primary parent. I didn't complain. I loved my girls more than anything in the world. Every laugh, every scraped knee, every bedtime story, yes, it was hard, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything. But Rachel? She drifted away. Late nights at work became the norm. Her phone was always face down. She stopped looking me in the eye at dinner. Her kisses became light kisses on the air. And then, one night, she walked in the door smelling like someone else. Not perfume, not wine, someone else. I asked her straight out. I explained to her that my heart couldn't take the deception. She lied. She said I was insecure. But the signs became clearer. When she finally slipped up, leaving her email open on the shared computer, I saw everything. A string of messages to a guy named Mark, hotel reservations, flirty messages. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even cry. No apology, no remorse, just a blank stare and an icy tone. "I haven't loved you for years," she told me. "I was just trying not to ruin the girls' lives until they were older." A few weeks later, we broke up. The divorce was unpleasant, but Rachel didn't want full custody of the girls. She didn't want the burden, just the last name. So we compromised and split custody evenly. The girls stayed with me almost full time. 2 months after the ink dried on the papers, Mark moved in with her. At first, I was angry, but I had to let that go because I still had to cook dinner, help with homework, deal with tantrums, and navigate teenage angst all on my own. My career stalled, my friends drifted away, and my personal life fell apart. But I was there, always, for birthdays, for dance recitals, for science fairs. I bought Amy her first bra and sat next to Elena when she experienced heartbreak for the first time. I was the only parent at some parent-teacher conferences. I cried in the dark many nights, wondering if I was good enough. But I always showed up, At the time, Rachel and Mark were the fun parents. Weekends out of town, lavish gifts, no limits. Elena would come home and talk about sushi nights and days at the spa. Amy would tell me that Mark let them watch movies I would never have allowed. They loved the thrill, the contrast, and I understood it. I told myself that at least they were happy, at least Mark wasn't a monster. But even so, there were warning signs that I didn't want to see. The girls stopped calling me Dad and started calling me Father. They thought twice before inviting me to school events. Their conversations always revolved around Rachel and Mark's life. But I still didn't believe they would want to leave me completely. When Elena sent the message asking for adoption, I didn't respond for several hours. I didn't know how to respond. I sat staring at a blank screen, my fingers trembling. What do you write when your children ask you to erase your name? I called Rachel, naively hoping she would understand the seriousness of their request. They're old enough to make their own choices, she replied irritably. It's just a name. You'll still be their biological father. You should be happy they want stability. Stability? I spat out. What do you call everything I've given them for the last 10 years? A prelude to a stable life with your second husband? Don't make this about you, she snapped. They adore you, but now they see Mark every day. He's part of their lives. Different last names are confusing. It's practical. Practical! The word rang in my head like a slap. I demanded to see the girls, face to face. When they sat down across from me at the table I had assembled myself, I couldn't hide my pain. Elena stared at the floor. Amy tugged at the threads on her sweater. I'm not angry, I told them. I just want to know, to really know. It's not because we don't love you, Elena whispered. It's just that everyone at school asks why we have different last names. Mark takes us home. The teachers think he's our dad. It's easier that way. Easier, I repeated. And now we stay there more often, Amy continued. You work all the time. You look exhausted. I wanted to scream, to tell them that I was exhausted because I worked 2 shifts to buy them clothes, that I worked so they wouldn't feel the absence of the mother who abandoned them, that I skipped meals so they wouldn't go hungry. But I didn't say that. I just nodded and told them the truth. If this is really what you want, I won't stand in your way. But I have to tell you, being your father wasn't just my job. It was the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. I kissed them on the forehead. They cried, but they left anyway. The day of the trial passed quietly. I didn't resist. I couldn't. They were teenagers, and the system these days listens to them more than it listens to me. Mark became their adoptive father. They took new names. That day, I came home and sat in the garage for an hour, looking at the bike I had taught Elena to ride. Her sticker was still on the handlebars. Supergirl. I started writing letters I would never send. One for every memory, for every knee I kissed when it was skinned, for every lullaby I sang, for every snowman we built. I wrote about the nights I stayed up while they burned with fever, and about how Amy climbed into my bed during a thunderstorm because she thought God was mad at her. I wrote and wrote, putting the letters in a box labeled, in case they ever want to know. I never stopped loving them. I couldn't. I just needed to figure out how to live in the hole they had created. Over time, the letters from them became fewer and fewer. Holidays came and went. Sometimes they sent cards, short, polite. Hope you're doing well, Dad. I smiled through the pain and replied with love. I didn't want them to feel guilty. I had already lost enough. I focused on rebuilding my life. I found a new job that didn't wear me out. I started cooking again, instead of just reheating leftovers. I even started dating a woman who owns a bookstore and has a son. I told her about my daughters, and she said something to me that I will never forget. You don't stop being a father just because someone else took your place. You were the bridge they crossed to become who they are. Even if they never look back, That bridge was everything to them. I believe that every day. My daughters now have different last names, but the memories, the sacrifices, the love, that's all me. That will always be me. Maybe one day, when they have children of their own, they'll understand what it means to be a parent. Not the gifts, not the weekends, the daily presence, the invisible work. And maybe, just maybe, they will find these letters. In the meantime, I go on living, without bitterness, without anger, just quieter, wiser, stronger, because I raise my daughters on my own. And even if they forget, I will never forget. The end.